Welcome to Destination Sasquatch. Let's have some fun.
Hey, my name is Paul Bowen.
And I'm Reggie Bird.
Today's topic, we're going to be talking about Reggie and I. Now, the reason we chose this topic is because we want to give you an opportunity to get to know us a little bit better. And before we start diving into some of the more deep topics of Sasquatch and giving viewers an opportunity to chime in, ask questions that we might answer, all the fun stuff that we're going to be doing here on the podcast, as well as our blog and some videos, we wanted to take a moment out of our time and just introduce ourselves. So my name, once again, is Paul Bowen. A little backstory on me. I was born and raised in Eastern Washington, and my passion for Sasquatch actually happened at a relatively young age. I remember going hiking with several people that on a hike up in the Okanogan, where one of the dads that was on the hike, or the dad that was on the hike that was kind of leading us, told some amazing Sasquatch stories that just happened to take place here in the Blue Mountains where Reggie and I live. And I was just fascinated. I was kind of I was an Art Bell fan as a kid. For those of you who don't know, Art Bell was just an absolutely amazing guy. When it came to radio, I used to listen to Art Bell late at night in bed on the AM radio. So I was interested in stuff that had to do with cryptozoology, but at the same time, I wasn't necessarily fascinated. But when I had my first real experience, I was up hunting by myself. And it was a late whitetail hunt. And if you can imagine, there's probably down in the foothills above the town of Chewelah, Washington. It was mid-November-ish. And I was up by myself, and there was about a foot of snow toward the foothills of the mountains there. And I kept going up this road, and there were a few camps up this road along the way. I just went several miles up this mountain road. And I came to one particular spot where I looked over on my left, and there was a guy that was coming down the mountain on his four-wheeler, and I decided to take an opportunity. I rolled down my window, and I kind of flagged him down, and he came over to me, and I said, "Hey, where does this road go?" I was just kind of looking for some new areas, kind of to get off the road, get away from some people, etc. So the guy told me he says, if you keep going up here maybe a few hundred yards, you're going to have to turn around. You won't make it up there in your F-150. And so I talked to him for a little bit more, asked him if he had seen any sign, anything like that. He said that they had a couple hanging back at camp, and we parted ways. I backed up a little bit, and me being the stubborn person that I was, I decided, well, now I'm going to go see what that's like. So I drive up that little back logging road, and I'm pushing fresh snow at a certain point, meaning I can see where his track stopped and where it was just completely fresh snow. And so if you can imagine, I'm driving along on this logging road in the middle of the mountains above Chewelah, and I'm pushing fresh snow, and my tires are digging into the ground. I'm in four-wheel low. And I dig and dig and dig for probably, I would say, 0.8 of a mile, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
But I came up to this weird spot where I came around. There was a cliff on the left-hand side. So you've got this cliff on the left-hand side, and that's what seemed like a pretty straight drop. And I come around this corner, and it was this dark, dank, forested area. If you can imagine, just you've got a hill on this side that's going up, and it's just I say a hill because I can see the topography. I can see that there's nothing on this hill as I'm viewing it back in my mind. And I can see up here there are trees. Over here there are trees, and then there's this valley, kind of a little valley, no more than 20 feet wide. And I don't know what it looked like in the springtime when the snow had thawed, but I remember seeing this just dark, dank. It was dark. That's the best way to describe it. And we're in a couple of feet of snow here. And I decide that's probably where the big bucks hang out, right? I don't know why that thought came to me, but I thought, I'm going to go check it out. Because if I want to get away from humans, most humans wouldn't go in there. It was just kind of too spooky looking. It was just weird. So I got out of my truck, and I remember locking it, and I threw the 30-06 on my back, and I started to walk around the truck. And I looked over on that hillside that I was describing, and there were perfect, and I'm not kidding when I say perfect. I'm talking seconds old tracks of Sasquatch. And when I saw the first track, I knew, but then I see the entire trackway with a massive gate, and I knew. And that sense, that overwhelming feeling that something's watching you and you're low on the totem pole. Oof. And the first thing that came to my mind is it's going to come up and push my truck over the edge of the right. I just started freaking out internally. I started sweating. I jumped back in the truck, and I remember the first person that I called my buddy David from Bellingham, and I said, "Hey, you're not going to believe what happened." And I told him the story. And this was before I was off the mountain. I was so sure, because you're pushing fresh snow. No one had been up there. And these tracks, you can see probably about an 18-inch track. And the gate was big. And you could see just ever so slight nail marks.
Ooh.
You could see it was as if a human hand, if you're going to, it wasn't claw marks, right? It was nail marks, like somebody that had grown their nails out a little bit way too long, right? You could just see that drag on each and every toe. It was so perfect, and it scared me to death. Ever since then, I've been fascinated with the idea of Sasquatch, and I've just been looking. And so for many years, I looked on my own. I would take my kids, I would take my family up to the mountains, and what's Dad doing? Dad's looking for Sasquatch. And at some point, and I'll lead you up to the point where Reggie and I meet and then let him take over. But at some point, it's kind of like hunting alone. Like in that experience, I just wish I would have had someone with me. Researching for Sasquatch, it was one of those things. It's like, try to find somebody, that you're compatible with when it comes to camping, hunting, those type of things. And then add into the fact that you got to find somebody who is at least open-minded to Sasquatch.
Exactly.
And at the time, I wasn't extremely comfortable necessarily talking about Sasquatch, as most believers, as we found out through our experience, are a little bit apprehensive when it comes to just divulging information about their beliefs in Sasquatch, which is another topic that we will be covering. But I kind of longed for somebody that shared my passion and shared the commitment. And so I was up on a hike. I was mutually invited by a friend to go up on this hike up in the Lostine area of Oregon. And I decided to go on the hike, and I think I even ended up driving, or did we drive 2 rigs?
You drove.
Yeah. And got up there, and Reggie was one of the guys that had received an invitation from this guy as well. And we got up there, and I remember starting off our trail, I think I leaned over to Reg, and I says, "Hey, if you see me lagging behind and you see me looking down at the ground, it's because I'm looking for Sasquatch tracks." And, usually the expectation is that you're going to get somebody that's like, "What the hell did you just say?"
Like, oh, this guy's kind of weird.
Right? But Reggie looked at me with eyes that were like, I found the person I was supposed to find. And it was the exact same feeling that I had. Like, I may have found the guy that I've been looking for that can go out with me squatching.
Yes.
And from there, a brotherhood, and I say brotherhood with the ultimate meaning of brotherhood. Reggie and I have become absolute brothers ever since that fateful meeting. We do everything together. Our families vacation together. We've started AAU basketball teams together, and most recently, we quit our jobs together. We decided to do this full time. Squatching is our passion. It's not just some, hey, it's fun to do every weekend type of a deal. No, this is our passion. I, as far as I know, we're the only people that are a team that are going to quit their jobs to do this full time, and that's what this is all about.
That's
figuring out how to make it happen. So that was my experience meeting Reg, how our friendship started. That's just tip of the iceberg. So I'll introduce you to Reg, let him bring you up to speed to that fortuitous experience up in the Minot area.
Yep. So basically, I'm from South Carolina. So, growing up in South Carolina, you don't have many mountains. There, you have the Appalachian Mountains north of where I grew up. But, mostly just woods and,
It's thick forested.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pretty thick forest. And so that's what I used to do. I used to basically explore in the woods, and I always had this passion for like the unknown or the mysterious. I didn't know what to call it at that point, but we had this legend around where I grew up. In the early 90s, it was called the Lizard Man.
What?
And, yeah.
Lizard Man.
Yeah, and
how were you? Did you really believe in the Lizard Man? Or did you have family members who were like,
oh,
Lizard Man's real?
Yeah.
Or was it just something like, because my mom had the boogeyman, but that's just because I wouldn't get out of the car or something. She'd be
No,
like, the
there was
boogeyman's
actually
gonna get
documented video and witness testimony.
Really?
The police came out it's a town called Bishopville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And they actually had the police come out and investigate a lady's van being ripped to shreds by this lizard man looking thing with claws and
It's just her ex-boyfriend. Pissed.
Yeah, you would think, but so I was fascinated, and I did all my all the research and just enamored by everything about the lizard man, and in doing that, I discovered the Loch Ness monster, and that phenomenon. And so climbing down that rabbit hole.
You still believe in the Loch Ness monster?
100%.
Yeah, and we have something similar in the Pacific Northwest in Willawas, Wally.
Oh, yeah. I did hear something about that, but and so after basically, like I said, climbing down the rabbit hole of the Loch Ness, just doing all the research and I came across this film, the Patterson Gimlin film, and I'm like, because I've heard of Bigfoot, but never really, I dived into it because I was more just on the Loch Ness at that point.
Yeah.
And so I decided to look, and I'm like, holy smokes, this thing is like real, and this thing is in the United States somewhere. And so I started just doing further doing research in that, and further going down rabbit holes online, and just being totally fascinated by the Sasquatch subject. And so I wanted to be I wanted to have as much knowledge as I possibly could get in that subject, and just run with it. And so moving here, I discovered the Freeman film, and I'm like,
Paul Freeman footage.
Yes, the Paul Freeman footage. Yeah,
yep, D-Duck Springs.
And I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? This thing is up there, basically in my backyard. Right. Something that I've been fascinated with since I was a kid, and so that pretty much sealed the deal for me and cemented, me in the Sasquatch lore.
And we'll be talking about the Freeman footage because of course, we're a little bit biased. We're from Walla Walla, but not many people, and we'll be talking about this, kind of the history and the backstory of Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin and their connection to the Blue Mountains. And it's just another piece of evidence that we'll be able to provide to the viewers out there as to why the Patterson Gimlin footage is real. But we've got what we strongly consider to be the second best footage ever recorded of Sasquatch, and that is the Paul Freeman footage.
Easily.
Right here in Walla Walla, Washington. So that's exciting. Yeah, so by way of background, I have a lot of experience. My degrees happen to be in organizational management. I've spent time as a teacher at a community college here in Walla Walla, teaching business classes. I've spent a lot of time in call center management, and then my most recent stint, when I wasn't playing entrepreneur, was as a business advisor for Washington State University here in Walla Walla. And I've always been drawn to entrepreneurship. I believe that was something that I got from my grandfather and some of the stories that he always told. He had a store in Jackson, Wyoming. It was one of the only grocery stores at that time in Jackson, Wyoming, and just had that entrepreneurial passion from a young kid. And where Reggie and I actually are at this point in our lives is that we actually run a business ourselves, and it's not Destination Sasquatch. We quit our jobs. Myself as working for WSU, and Reggie at the time was working for the Walla Walla Public School system, public school district, and we quit our jobs, and we figured out that in order to make this passion happen, we're going to have to spend more time together because just getting together on odd weekends and evenings together, which was fantastic, but at the same time, our families wanted to interact, not us business planning, and so we had to eventually do something drastic. What was that drastic thing? We quit our jobs. We opened up a souvenir shop that has a strong Sasquatch influence. Here in Walla Walla to try to give ourselves an opportunity to plan out the next step. How in the world can we become full-time Sasquatch researchers? We already know that Sasquatch exists. That's not our intention.
Without a doubt.
Our intention is to just bring more. Our intention is to bring more attention, but also we want to bring a completely new target audience, and that is non-believers to the conversation. Or at least those people who are open-minded, because non-believers sometimes that gets a little bit frustrating. But Reg, tell the people what you did before coming into Uniquely Walla Walla.
I was in, like you were saying, I was in the public school system, worked at the local middle school. Then I also did a little bit in the medical field, worked with the local hospitals around, and also the veterans, worked with them as far as, getting them the equipment they needed to pretty much live normal lives, as normal as they could possibly live. And whether that be high-end wheelchairs or some breathing apparatuses. Just started there, and
you're also a member of the military. Thank you for your service.
Yep.
We've also got another member of the military behind our camera here. Ben, say hi to everyone. Thanks, Ben. But no, and then you took. I mean, it was a big leap for both of us.
For sure. Yeah.
And how did we have that conversation with our wives? It was a little bit awkward.
Yeah, just basically. If you can picture, just coming to your wife and say, "Hey, leave him a job."
Why? For Bigfoot? Right? Who does that?
Oh man, and
nobody.
The look I got that day was
the hell you are
burned into my memory forever. So
no, it was interesting. I would say it was a process where it took us quite some time to kind of lead up to it, and. Huge thanks to our wives and our families for all their support, because this is not easy. It's not something
by
that
any means.
Number one, having your husbands come out of as the weirdos that believe in Bigfoot is one thing, but also just the time away from home and the money that we have to dedicate to this. We thank them so much as well. We really thank the viewers as well. So we hope to be taking the viewers on this journey with us. The goal is to turn what we're doing now into full-time work so that we are researching, we are investigating. And once again, for us, it's a little bit different. We'll tell you eventually in some of these future episodes, we'll be telling you why we know that Sasquatch exists, talk about sightings we've had, talk about encounters, talk about some of the people that we've had an opportunity to squatch with and the experiences that they've had when they're with us.
Fun times.
We'll talk about our future goals, but you'll get to hear all of that on future podcast episodes, so we do hope that you tune in.
Oh, yeah.
We appreciate you.